So, all right. Good morning, everyone. Shall we start with some prayers? Page 8, the Sutra of the Heart of Perfection of Wisdom. I prostrate to the Arya triple gem. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagawan was dwelling on massive vultures mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagawan was absorbed in the concentration of the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also, at that time, the bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the 3 times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as true since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared: Tayata Om Gate Gate Padagate Padasam Gate Bodhi Soha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagawan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara. Well said, son of the lineage. It is like that. It is like that. One should practice a profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagawan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the worlds of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagawan. I prostrate to the gathering of the Dakinis in the 3 chakras who abide in the holy yoga of using space. By your powers of clairvoyance and magical emanation, look after practitioners like a mother her child. Akasamara Sashadara Samara Yape. Tayata Gate Gate Padagate Padasam Gate Bodhi Soham. By the teaching of the three supreme jewels possessing the power of truth, may inner and outer hindrances be transformed. May they be dispelled, may they be pacified, may they be completely pacified. May all negative forces opposed to Dharma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May we be separated from problems and harmful conditions to Dharma. May all enjoyments be in accord with the Dharma, and may there be auspiciousness and perfect happiness here right now. And then page 15, offering the mandala. Sashi Bhoki Shukshina Metuk Rahamarira Blingshi Nitegen Hari Sange Shinu Mekte Namadak Jin La Chu Pashu Jetsun Lama Nam Kinam Kichoku Kala Kien Se Chuzin Trip Jit Hazampe Shima Lahasapyechuhi Chapato solidum Guranamandala Tamnivayatayomi. Refuge in bodhicitta. Sangye Churan Soye Chonam La Jangchu Badu Dabni Kyab Suchi Dagi Chunyen Gi Personam Ki Drola Pancha Sangye Dropa Shu Sangye Churan Soye Chonam La Jangchu Badu Dabni Kyab Suchi Lagi Chunyen Gi Personam Pi Drola Panche Sangye Drupa Shu Sangye Churan Saye Chonam La Jangchu Badu Dabni Kyapsuchi Lagi Chunyen Gi Personam Pi Drola Panche Sangye Drupa Shu. So today is Lama Zopa Rinpoche's 75th birthday. Yay! Isn't that a delight to the mind that Rinpoche is still with us? And so we can set our motivation. So there's going to be obviously at Kopan Monastery many celebrations today and offerings for Rinpoche's long life and so forth. So, and for Rinpoche to continue to guide us and set our motivation like this so that we make the most of this precious human rebirth, you know, as Rinpoche does continue to guide us in that way, how to benefit others and not causing harm. It is not enough for us to achieve liberation from samsara for oneself alone. Rinpoche, you know, regularly reminds us of that. We must aspire to liberate every single numberless sentient being from the oceans of samsaric suffering and bring them into enlightenment. And Rinpoche, we know, we see, is a living example of these teachings, these profound teachings. So we can all find inspiration in how Rinpoche offers compassion to all living beings without leaving out any one single sentient being, including the most vulnerable, the most fearful, the most harmful, and the most difficult amongst us. So as Rinpoche would say, wow, 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 wow. And so in the absence of having prepared a cake, it sort of went out of my mind. Delicious drink to offer. So those of us who've taken refuge, as we always, the first offering of anything we eat, anything we drink is to the precious Guru, right? We were talking yesterday that I think last time Lama Zopa Rinpoche was here, it was the last time, 2006? Yeah. 2006 was the last time. And there was it a lunch or was it a dinner? It was a meal. And Rinpoche gave extensive offerings. They went on. We're always warned that if you're offering food to Rinpoche, maybe don't expect it to, if it's warm, don't expect it to stay warm, Rinpoche one time was on airplane, Venerable Roger, has put up the blog, or whoever does the blog now. And they're on an airplane on a flight, and, they bring around the food. And so Rinpoche started doing the blessing and kept doing the blessing. And eventually, as they were sort of putting the landing gear on, the flight attendant said, "Oh, excuse me, so I'm so sorry, but we're going to have to take that away now." "No problem, the best bit's done. Important bit's done, finished." Right. And what I love, when Lama Zopa Rinpoche, we have that picture, I'm not sure if it's in this prayer book, of making offerings, or maybe in the silver one. If you notice, so Rinpoche's, anyway, have a look, and he's holding, it's a cup and saucer, I believe. Nothing touches, nothing sticks. Nothing sticks. It's no grasping whatsoever. So it's Rinpoche's a lesson. Every moment is a lesson. So nothing's grasping, nothing's sticking. Actually, Venerable Roger, I remember when we were at Copan, he was asked to come and give a talk about the beginnings of FPMT, but Rinpoche talked about the first courses there when they were in the tent all together sleeping, and there was no cafe, believe me. There was no running water. There was, not many things. Anyway, so, but at the time when Venerable Roger was attendant to Lama Yeshe, and Lama Yeshe would say to Venerable Roger, he told this story, he said, Lama would say, after a teaching, go to Zopa's room, Rinpoche's room, and get the offerings before he gives them all away. And Venerable Roger said, I never got there in time. He said one time he got there, and underneath our shum tub, this one's called shum tub, underneath there's a slip to protect, the shum tub from your body. And Venerable Roger said he got there one time and Rinpoche's in his slip. And I guess she just left the room and said, "Oh, Rinpoche, where's the shum tub? We've got to go to the airport." And he said, "Oh, I gave it to the Geshe. He needed one." It's like, okay, we've got to find a shum tub because Rinpoche can't walk out like this and catch a plane. So, we can admire that. So also, I heard, talk that one time in a teaching, it was a warm day, like we're about to experience, getting warmer, for the next week, and then getting warmer for the next few months. And one of the students there in the front of Rinpoche visualized offering cool, refreshing drink, cool, refreshing water like this. And Rinpoche looked up and said, "Thank you." He just visualized it, right? So I was leading, I still get tingling to this day. And so I was telling this discussion group that we were having, one of the guys came one day and he said, I tried that, it didn't work. So we have to check our motivation, right? So anyway, I feel like saying happy birthday to you. Anyway, happy birthday, Rinpoche. Oma hong lama san ge la hama chu de shin la hama ge dun te ku gi che po la hama te la ma nam la chu pa bu. The Guru is Buddha, the Guru is Dharma, the Guru is Sangha also. The Guru is the creator of all happiness. To all Gurus, I make this offering. Okay, then we can have a drink and enjoy, because we made the offering. Lama Zopa Rinpoche in the last retreat in Bendigo said, Venerable Raja was sitting in the front row down here, and Rinpoche said, sometimes I forget to make that offering prayer. So if you're feeling that way, you're in good company. Right? Sometimes I forget, Rinpoche said. He very kindly, guides us. I forgot to, sometimes I forget to make the offering or the food or the drink, And then he said, but Venerable Raja never forgets. You remember? Yeah, amazing. See, goosebumps. All right. So with that delight, and of course, for the long life of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, we'll say the prayers at the end. So here we are, the three principles of the path, three principal aspects of the path, Lama Tsongkhapa. When you, it is said that the preparation, shall we say, for taking tantric empowerment is, if not a realization of the three principal aspects of the path, at least a good working knowledge of this is that preparation. So regardless, I think, reflecting on these three principles of the path, as laid out here by Lama Tsongkhapa, again and again and again and again, it actually, Joseph Tsongkhapa reminds us to do that again and again and again and again, because we need again and again and again and again to merge it, to mix it with our mind stream. So those of us who've received teaching, such as myself, having received from His Holiness Dalai Lama, Khyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, this teaching, from Geshe Samten in Sydney many times, in Geshe Sultan also many times, at Chenrezig Institute, and others. That's why they say to keep a notebook. And when you get the opportunity, to receive transmission of any of the texts, request, because that way we get that direct lineage into our mind stream. And it said then when you're up on the Bodhisattva grounds, further up on Bodhisattva grounds, all the transmissions and so forth that you've received arise in your mind as realizations, right? They might arise as realizations before that, but at least by then, whenever that is, okay? And you remember them all. I mean, if they're realizations, of course you're going to remember them all. You don't need the words because they're in your mind. Okay. So meantime, back at ground zero, back in samsara, meanwhile. Okay, so here we are. So we introduced the text last time, and maybe I'll start on the second verse today. Whoever are not attached to the pleasures of transient existence. So just like Lama Zopa Rinpoche reminds us of that example of making the most of this precious human rebirth and not being attached. So this is the mind of relinquishment. I'm sorry, page 143 in the text. A mind of relinquishment. I love that word, relinquishment. Just let go, relinquish. Or as Punso Rinpoche says, delete. Just delete, gone. I love that because it's gone. It's disappeared into nothingness. So ways and phrases. And that's why it's really good to, as the Buddha said, hear the teachings many times, many teachers discuss with fellow students, hear it differently and hear a different, or read different commentaries, So myself at the moment reading a few different commentaries, and I find it very useful for my mind to, giving different examples and different ways of connecting with this teaching. So not being attached to the pleasures of transient existence. So the pleasures is based on the senses, isn't it? Our sense consciousnesses that are operating 24/7. We see something, beautiful, we want, beautiful flower, as if the beauty of the flower is out there, whereas that's my mind imputing that. But nonetheless, thank you very much for offering these flowers here. I can enjoy, but the senses go towards that, or to beautiful sound, the ear consciousness goes, or the beautiful taste, or the beautiful smell. And we're doing that every nanosecond of every waking moment, all day. And, we get exhausted at the end of the day, no wonder. I mean, I didn't do anything today, but I'm exhausted. When you did, all your senses were just sort of fired up 24/7. Yeah. And so this constant grasping at the source of my happiness out there, which, as it says, it's transient. It doesn't last. It's unstable. It's no matter where you're born in samsara, in the cushy God realms, or whatever, in the best of human conditions, which is what we have right now. And just look at our mind. How satisfied are we? How content are we? How happy are we? How enduring is that? So we check again and again and again like this. So here we are in this situation. Whoever strives to make leisure and fortune worthwhile. So striving, making the effort, you made the effort to arrange your day to be here today, right? Gold star striving. Continue on our prayers, our practices, working on the mind. That's the hard striving. Transforming the mind is the hard striving. We've just got to keep going, not with a tightness, with a spaciousness, a looseness, a relaxed mind, because the more content our mind, the more we turn away from dissatisfaction, the more relaxed, the more at ease, the more light, and the more we let go of the attachment, the lighter our grasp on things, these things we cherish, so that we just practice relaxing the grasp, opening out, just I find that very useful, just by doing this. It's a reminder to me, oh yes. And then of course I get the inspiration that Rinpoche does that, but also, oh yes, don't grasp. And so we don't have to have anything in our hands for that. Just watch what happens when we go to the supermarket, the shopping centre, especially this time of year, right? There's a lot of grasping out there. A lot of things to be grasped, So if you survived the, what was it, Black Friday sales and the cyber this and the whatever, you're exhausted, everything. It's just like, how else can we sell you something? But, it's this constant barrage of advertising to suck us in. So You know, so those of us striving, so, you know, they look at, you know, if we look at the numbers, that those, we're here, right? Okay, you might be shopping later, but we're here and we're wanting to engage, you know, it says those fortunate ones, you fortunate ones, fortunate because we have met the Buddha's teachings. Not only that we've met the Buddha's teachings, we've met the sublime, most subtle view of dependent arising, which is unique teaching of the Buddha, as presented by Lama Tsongkhapa. So this is the most refined views you can connect with. It's just like we have every condition available to us, right? Absolutely every. And fortunate because we're also appreciating this, wanting it, even craving it. It's an okay craving to have, right? Run towards the Dharma, because that running towards the Dharma is a result, even though we can't remember, of a vast accumulation of, you know, the stainless prayers we've made in past lives. Like, you know, this time when people have passed away and we say, may you meet the precious Mahayana Guru in, you know, all future lifetimes. I hope you say that every morning for yourself, you know, may in this and all future lifetimes continue to meet and, you know, get the teachings and the long life of our teachers and so forth to continue to turn the wheel of Dharma, and this world needs it, you know, just thinking this world, let alone all of samsara. Training our mind like this continuously because we appreciate the value of this. And, you know, we've made strong prayers in past lives. We've practiced ethical discipline purely in the context of taking vows, that we find ourselves in a Mahayana center, you know, where the practice of altruism, bodhicitta, you know, the aspiration to become a Buddha ourselves for the benefit of all beings would assume that we have practiced within the context of taking bodhisattva vows in past lives. Because why did we run here and not there? You know, nothing wrong with there, but this is where our karmic connection is. And not only that, the most you know, having the Gelugpa tradition, you know, established Lama Tsongkhapa, the most refined views, so that, you know, we can develop the compassion and wisdom. We've got all the guidance that we need, you know, right there, palm of our hands to practice, right? So this fortunate one, so, you know, we've practiced generosity, we've practiced all the perfections. You know, when we said the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, here we're saying listening to the Dharma by the virtue of listening to the Dharma, which is itself very virtuous. When we do in our daily practice, it's the virtue of giving and the other perfections, the practice of all the perfections, which lead then, you know, from cultivating this altruistic mind, lead us then to the, you know, contemplation on the correct view, you know, in that first verse of the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, chapter 9, when Shantideva says, all the previous, you know, this whole presentation on all the other 5 preceding perfections was for the purpose of this, of wisdom, just like in the Heart Sutra, you know, the explicit teachings of the Heart Sutra, but implicitly the Heart Sutra also teaches all the paths and the methods and to get there, right? Okay, so we need to appreciate again and again how rare, how precious this is. And maybe we get a bit complacent. Oh, yes, my precious human rebirth. I've got, you know, all these leisures and endowments or freedoms and opportunities and so forth. But we need that constant reminder of what it would be like if we were born in a hellish existence, which is, Lama Yeshe says, not place, it's a hellish existence, can be that existence on earth. And we read about that every day in the news. You just think any one of those scenarios that you read in the news of terrible atrocities and the tears come to the eyes and you just go, oh, unbearable suffering. Good, that's generating compassion. But what intense suffering there is manifesting in front of us all the time, right? So we use that to cultivate the good heart. Talking about the good heart, this is just an aside. I watched His Holiness the Dalai Lama conversation with Father Lawrence Freeman. I don't know if anyone watched. Who revived the world Christian. Yes, no? Planning to, yeah. It's only an hour. But beautiful, because what was interesting, when I met Lawrence Freeman, he said, I became a monk because I wanted to meditate. That's why he said I became a monk, because he went into a contemplative tradition, Christian contemplative tradition. And him and his relationship, very long-term relationship with His Holiness. It was beautiful to see them together, conversing. And then others asking questions. But right at the very end, he asked this really sublime question, or made a comment about how we mistake what is an illusion, what is transitive, for reality, for true existence. We didn't say true existence, we would say that. But I thought that's interesting. So you don't have to be Buddhist to understand this. He's not, but he's a contemplative. So when we cultivate these minds, of course, all faiths, all religions talk about compassion, the heart of compassion, love and kindness, and so forth. So the good heart was the teachings that Lawrence Freeman had requested His Holiness to give the John Main seminar. It was way back in London on the Gospels, right, from a Buddhist perspective. So who puts the barriers in there is us. These beings, His Holiness says, beyond religion. Lama Yeshe said that in the 1980s when we sort of developed universal education and all of this sort of thing. So they really blow our mind, our precious gurus. Okay, to strive, take striving, to make leisure and fortune worthwhile. So this very life that we have, to take the essence. What is the essence? What's the most important thing? If I were going to die right now and we don't know when we're going to die, what would be the most important thing for me to do? So then we have the contemplations on the whole death and impermanence, the transient of existence. I could die at any time. Everything in samsara is completely unstable, whether I'm born in a God realm, where I'm, living in the cushy, what are the cushy places? You have to tell me, where are the cushy places here? It's all south, right? South of here. Is it Rockingham or further, or? You mean the posh area? Posh. Oh, Western suburbs. Western suburbs. Yes. It's so opposite in Sydney. I'm just like, Western suburbs. Of course, closer to the water. We all want to be on the water, isn't it? So, of course, sea breeze, yeah, everything that we want there. So, but then global warming. So you're still subject to samsara, or it all comes crashing down, or you lose it, or whatever, like that. So we need to, yeah. So whoever's striving in the Dharma, especially in the Mahayana great scope, it's not being partisan, it's just being realistic of you have a much vaster mind and a much faster accumulation of merit, because at least in our minds, where our thoughts are embracing each and every single sentient being there is in existence. So when it gets to actual practices of bodhicitta, who are inclined to the path, pleasing the conqueror Buddhas. This is the practice of bodhicitta. So the line before, more about renunciation. This one, the principle of renunciation, this is all summarized here. And then bodhicitta, the altruistic mind, wishing to benefit each and every single sentient being without exception, regardless of whether they harm, help, or do neither. So inclined to that path, we're inclined to that path. Doesn't mean we've achieved anything. We're just inclined towards it. It's where we came to the Dharma center. It's where, or even where we keep coming back to. That's where we keep coming back to. That's what our practice is. That's what our motivation is, so that we're inclined towards it. And that pleases the Buddhas. They say the bodhisattvas all rejoice. They, oh, welcome. It's like a new baby bodhisattva has been born, welcome. So when people come to the Dharma Center like this, we have the welcome, like I said, you know, it's the only email for a center that I know of that says welcome at Higher Grieva. I think that's brilliant because it's that cultivating that sense. Rinpoche said, you know, that the most important thing, welcoming people into the center. I love it. Simple acts of smiling, you know, extending hand and heart out to each other. So simple. Because we read the teachings. I don't know, we're getting distracted now. We haven't got to listen with a calm mind, is it? Clear mind, yeah, the focus. That's the next line. Okay. Okay, bodhicitta, the path pleasing to the conqueror Buddhas, the path of altruism, kind heart, good heart. We can use the words that resonate with us. Those fortunate ones is us. So we have to see how fortunate this opportunity is. And we have to keep reminding ourselves why, because we're very good at reminding ourselves what's not working. But to remind ourselves what is working. And when it is working, we sort of take it for granted. For myself, like when Chodron Rinpoche, His Eminence Chodron Rinpoche, previous, now there's Lurin reincarnation with the cute little ears, cute big ears in the little Lamas Copper, you know, he's got the yellow hat, the pandit's hat. He must be 5 now, maybe 6. Anyway, previous. So came to Australia first and ended up in hospital instead of coming to those teachings. Consequently, I got to come here for that teaching. So, you know, fortunately, Rinpoche was coming here afterwards. And at the airport when Itchy Sampton said, okay for Chokyi to fly? And Rinpoche being of few words, yes. That's all I needed. Booked the ticket, got on the plane, came. So how fortunate, you know, how fortunate we are. So I appreciated that because when things, you know, the plan had gone awry, the plan to be there in Sydney had gone awry. Welcomed Rinpoche to Sydney and then went to hospital next day. So that we make our worldly plans. Well, it wasn't worldly, it was a Dharma plan, but, you know, I couldn't see what Rinpoche could see. But before the medics had said, yep, okay to fly, Rinpoche said, okay to fly, that was good enough for me. In fact, it was correct, right? So how fortunate we have to have these beings in our lives. So then recognizing how fortunate, listening with a clear mind. So this is cultivating the mind of concentration, yes, a calm mind. Some of the texts, like I've got a different translation at home in the retreat book, it says listen with a calm mind. So a pacified mind. We do that in the Heart Sutra, completely pacified, the mind. So the mind that ultimately free of all, not just the disturbances of the senses, but all the disturbing emotions. That mind is incredibly powerful, laser-like concentration when we take the teachings onto the cushion. You know, so this is the mind, this is the wisdom mind, that clarity, you know, when you've got that, when you're in sync with that natural mind, which taps into our Buddha nature, our very nature, the very nature of mind, clarity, luminosity, you know, unobstructed. So like unobstructed space, there's nothing cluttering it up. Right? So we do our best meantime, and we refresh like that. So that's just saying how to listen. And then, so that whole verse, summary of these, of of these three principles right there in that verse. So that summarizes the whole three principal aspects of the half. So just learning that one, and with an understanding that it does summarize, is a, you know, committing that to memory. And then, okay, persuading then to, so each one of these three principles, there's a verse that is, you know, talking about the need to generate that mind, then how we generate that mind. And then it says, okay, this is how to tell that you have generated that mind. So without a complete intention, definitely to leave a cyclic existence. So our complete intention, a very strong determination. So the two aspects of liberation, one is freedom, you know, turning away from the worldly affairs of this life, isn't it? Turning away from the worldly affairs of this life, and the small scope practitioner, or the practices that we do to look towards future lives. So at least ahead of the game of just being totally caught up in all the meaningless affairs, as it said, of this life, the worldly affairs of, you know, wanting to amass reputation and property and friends and family and feel good, the pleasures to the senses, which is mostly what we're doing, externally, internally, and wanting to have a good reputation. Every time I think good reputation, I sort of sit up like this and want a good reputation. I don't know if anyone ever saw the original film Samsara, not the more recent Samsara one, but the older film Samsara. It starts at the very beginning, maybe some people have seen. It starts with this monk. He's been in retreat for years. And so his retreat is ended. And so they're carrying him down on a, you know, one of those, you know, plankin or something. Palanquin, that thing. So because his body has been in retreat, and so he's like stuck in this position. And they carry him down and everyone's revering him. And wow, you know, how's that? He's still meditating and he's amazing and blah, 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 blah. So pretty soon he starts having desirous dreams. And it's a slippery slope that goes downhill pretty quick. Let's just say he wasn't a monk then for very long afterwards. And so this is samsara, right? And so they say you can look like the renounced monk meditating, or nun, or whatever, not even meditating in retreat. Or any one of us can look like, oh yes, I'm practicing renunciation. Did you notice I'm practicing renunciation? Do you know I'm up there in the cave? I've got a sign. It says, shh, do not enter, do not disturb. But you can still be attached to, oh, I wonder what they're thinking about me. You know, do they think I'm doing a good job? You know, are they going to bring me food or whatever? I don't know, you know. Any one of us could be in that situation, right? Ordained or not, you know, doesn't, you know, so of course we take ordination and that helps us simplify our lives externally. But as like when I ordained and came back to the center and I said to people, I've only changed the outside. There's a big work in progress going on and it's going to take a long time. But this outside is a good reminder to me, you know, constantly every day. What am I representing? I'm representing the Buddha. I better behave myself, you know. Ethical discipline. So it's very good. This is how we get that calm mind, ethical discipline, and so forth. So we need this complete intention or definite intention to definitely not just this life, not just giving up the worldly affairs of this life, but making a commitment to Buddhahood. So giving up all the pleasures of samsara, indeed, altogether. So the basis for us taking refuge, which is still part of the small scope, which is relinquishing, you know, the meaningless affairs of this life. We contemplate death and impermanence. You know, I haven't got much time left. Easy to contemplate that one. The older you get, it's so much easier. Just saying. These perishing aggregates. To not have attachment to this body, to not have attachment to the senses, to not have attachment to reputation and wealth and so forth. It's a trap. To not have attention to attraction to being in the posh suburbs. Is it posh towns? Yeah. You can join Susan in the God realms. Or even beyond, you know, in the form realm, formless realm, where you don't have a clunky body like that. No, in the formless realm, right at the top. It said we've all been to the peak of existence, almost out of samsara altogether. How come we're back in this suffering existence? Grasping at this me. And then on top of me, this sort of grasping, mine. So there was one story about a monk who, I think Geshe Zoka tells this story, so you may have heard. He was attending his teacher. And his teacher, people would come to make offerings to his teacher. And his attendant didn't think about it, but after people came to make the offerings, he'd sort of disappear behind the house. Anyway, when he passed away, his attendant went to his teacher's teacher to see where has he taken rebirth, you know, because he wanted to reconnect with his teacher. And the Lama said, go and check behind the house. He goes behind the house and he comes back and says, I didn't see him behind the house. He said, check again. He went behind the house, checked a bit more closely, and there was a mound. And on top of the mound was a frog, protecting my stash from the previous life. You're not going to get many more teaching from a frog. Or maybe that was the teaching. I just did this as a teaching for you. So we've got to be careful what we're attached to, because we can be craving something at the time of death that, you know, we're attached to, end up in well, you might end up in an animal body, but you might end up in a spirit form. So we have to be very careful, right? So having this definite sense of, you know, to stop seeking the pleasures again and again and again. We've done it all. We've been to the peak of existence, almost out of here. We've been in the hell realms. We've been in the beginningless lives as animals and hellish beings and so forth. And humans, best one. Best one only if we use it to best advantage and don't get caught up in the, you know, I was reading Lama Yeshe yesterday on talking about, you know, how, you know, at the time of death, all our conceptual, you know, we can be attached to say, oh, I'm not attached to anything in the house. You know, so when the students coming in, I'm not attached to anything, and they'd come in and say, I looked around the house and went, yeah, I can live without this, I can live without that. I said, what about your smartphone? your latest laptop, whatever. I mean, we have to interrogate the mind, don't we? Imagine in death time craving for iPhone, whatever, 28. What are we up to now? I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that I live long enough for 28 or 100 or iPhone 100, Supermax, whatever. So it's a good practice, actually, that letting go, craving. And of course, because it's a bit nebulous to think about give up attachment to future lives, because we're not there, we're here. But we can see, what is it in my life right now that's going to ensure my liberation? You know, what practice to do? How do I practice? How do I generate that? So craving. Oh yeah. So if we don't generate that mind, definitely wanting to be free of all this, to leave a cyclic existence altogether. And a meditation, you know, in Tibetan, the presentation about the precious human rebirth is more literally precious or perfect human body, because we're so attached to the body. So it's a very helpful object of renunciation. It doesn't mean die, and you know, it doesn't mean neglect your body. Use our body, keep it healthy. Because as you know, when I ordained and came back to Vajrayana Institute, and the monk who was there, it was I got ordained in the coldest winter at the time, in 30 years at that time. Might be still the coldest, because we're global warming, not global colding. So maybe that was, you know, we'd come out from the teachings and there'd be, at Winderley, it was like 3 a.m, whatever. There'd be ice over the cars and so forth. This was at Dodger Chung in New Zealand in, 2006. It was after here. I remember I went to Chenrezig, Long Life Puja, and then to New Zealand. So it was freezing cold. And I came back and this monk said, you've got to look after yourself. Don't just, you know, be too austere. Austerity is good, but you've got to keep yourself in good health, because how on earth are you going to benefit others if you're not healthy? So that's the thing, isn't it? I maintain my health, but not overindulge at Christmas. I never got it when I was a kid, you know, we go to the, well, I did get it, I loved it, you know. You overate and you felt like a beached whale, and you went to the beach and you really did feel like a beached whale in Newcastle, going to the beach after you just sort of waddle down to the beach. Like, how many times do you need to do that? Once is enough, isn't it? Because at Chenrezig Institute, we saw, there's a lot of snakes. And for about 3 weeks, we all got very excited. Everyone, you go into the Gompa and the windows are sort of much, you know, come down to like hip level or something, don't they? The windows all along louvers. Some people have been there, you know what I'm talking about. And everyone would be at the windows looking out to see if the snake had moved. So the snake had swallowed koala? Bush turkey, something big. Possum, I think was possum. And it had this stomach. And then they just lie there because they can't move. So that's the suffering of our animal existence. So be careful with Christmas dinner. What body you want to end up in. It's good. We use these examples to help us, you know, try and get a sense of what are the sufferings of samsara. I really don't want to have that. Thanks. I do not want to have that. Of course, on our Mahayana practice, we have also cultivate compassion towards others, but it says at the beginning, because it's just like, oh yes, but I've made a altruistic motivation just right there in the refuge prayer to do this for the benefit of all living beings. So I'll just go straight to the, you know, deep end of the pool. But I haven't learned to swim yet. So it says at the beginning of your practice, we have to generate this intention to leave samsara ourselves, intention to not get caught up in all these worldly affairs. And we have to do that again and again because our senses are continually operating. So we have to do over and over and over and over and over and over and over this. So we have to generate an intention. So we can say an intention or aspiration, like when we say our prayers. An aspiration is a prayer. It's a wish, isn't it? And as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, everything exists on the tip of the wish. So the mere wish starts to cut the root of samsara, starts to cut the root. You know, like you come into the Dharma Center. I think there should be a sign. Beware all who enter here. Your life will be changed forever. You won't enjoy shopping so much. Or maybe you enjoy it, but you don't have to have it. But then you've got family and they all want something for Christmas. Isn't it? Samsara has its complications. So anyway, generating this strong determination to be definitely free of this. And this is the practice of the Kadampa masters, you know, the 10 innermost jewels of the Kadampas, which was one of the teachings that actually Chodron Rinpoche gave at Chenrezig subsequently. It's really useful because it's sort of like, it says, you know, you will be out of step with society. And this is also what makes it hard for us to practice, because we are out of step. It's sort of, being a Buddhist is being an inner being. So it's not like I tell my family and friends about this unless they ask, you know. When I was caring for my mum at the end of her life, her neighbour would say, has she tried to make you Buddhist yet? Because she was in a Catholic retirement village. And she said, oh no, she doesn't say anything unless I ask her or something. And that's good. I felt relieved that my mother could say that phew, because it's our practice. Our business is an internal transformation, working internally, not trying to change others, but it's hard enough trying to change ourselves, let alone anyone else, forget it. You know? But that's our, you know, long-term goal. But at the beginning, we have to generate this strong determination, this to definitely emerge, as it says, definite emergence, weariness of lifetime after lifetime of suffering existences. And if this is as good as it gets, what were all the others like? A lot less satisfactory. And if I'm dissatisfied with this, imagine what it'd be like in a real suffering body where you have no choice whatsoever. We have choice. We have choice whether to practice Dharma, listening to the teachings, or to continue going shopping. Nothing wrong with going shopping. We need to eat and so forth. But be careful. Okay. So the leisures and fortunes are difficult to find. So this existence is rare, We take it for granted. It's like, you know, when I had the, you know, sort of opportunity for Dharma teachings, and then I didn't. I ended up in hospital. So that example made me appreciate that actually you have to have a vast accumulation of merit. So I needed to do a bit more intense work on myself to get on a plane to here. Fortunately, I was able to do that, right? Still touch and go. I remember sitting there, I was around about where you are, Ros, and I was sitting there and thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get up. And I was just like, whatever it is, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to stay here, you know. So that sort of sense of determination, because illnesses will come and difficulties will come, but that helps strengthen, it can help strengthen our mind to say, yep, this is what I'm here for. And then I can remind myself at the times, which is most of the time when my mind's lazy, but then you were determined. So where's that determination? And refresh it, 24/7, isn't it? Because we worked hard previously to get this opportunity, and so rare. We don't know when this opportunity is coming again. We assume it's coming again. Oh, I'll do that next life. Well, you might be that frog on the, you won't be doing too much of that next life. I mean, what a frog's existence is like, but it's pretty boring as far as I can see. Not much potential. And life has no duration. We think that, you know, like I once made a 5-year plan. Once made a 5-year plan because none of it worked out. So I gave up, you know, sort of business management training 101 says, make your 5-year plan, make your long-term goals. Well, I tried that. Didn't work for me. I mean, you can have my long-term goal is Buddhahood, right? So if I'm making my long-term goal Buddhahood, okay, keep working on it regardless of whether the 5-year plan for this life works out or not, you know. But to think, you know, it's a mere blink, it's a mere dream of a being in the God realms, you know, where they live for 1,000 years or whatever. And that, when you realize you're in those posh suburb towns, posh places on the coast, and you realize, because when we're in the lap of luxury, we're sort of complacent. We don't feel like we need to do anything different. We can check for ourselves, even though we don't live in those places necessarily. But think, you know, when everything's cruising, you don't think, oh, I better do something to improve myself because everything's falling into place. True, right? It's only when it gets tough that we're like, oh, I've got to go to the Dharma Center. Or maybe I heard many students say their partner said, isn't it time you went back to the Dharma Center? Just suggesting. Yeah, really, really. Very kind. Thank you for the suggestion. Yeah, we'll all be better off, right? Okay, but to think it's gone, you know, that dash between the year of birth and the year of death is teeny, one little dash. And we have to familiarize with this, with the fact that, yes, death is certain, time is uncertain. And the only things that I can take with me is what is on my mental continuum, this very subtle level of mind. So I want that to be the best case scenario. In other words, I want all the dharmic imprints I can have. I want all the realizations I can have, which means then taking it onto the cushion. I want all the virtuous states of mind I can have. So last night, I was discussing with someone. You want to know how long into the death process can you continue to generate virtue? I was just like, just check your mind right now. How long can you continue to generate virtue? You get into the death process. I mean, you get sick. It's very hard. You know, one of the director at Vajrayana Institute, Margaret Castles. I don't know if people met Margaret. Maybe some people met Margaret. She was amazing practice. She was always, you turn up at the Dharma Center, you do your welcome, and pretty much her next breath was, so when are you going to do a retreat? She was a very good way of hooking people in. Actually, Geshe Dawa at Margaret's funeral said that she was reborn in Vajrayana Pure Land. She's a great practitioner, right? But when she got ill with, you know, she got cancer, she just kept saying, it's so hard to practice when you're not well. And it is, we know for ourselves, right? So hard to practice when you're not well. So forget about, I'm going to have that a level of awareness at death time. I mean, it'll be over before you know it. You'll be in the next body without a blink of an eye. So let's not even contemplate that. Let's think, how much virtue am I generating moment to moment? So we have to habituate with that again and again and again, because, you know, can be snuffed out in a nanosecond. Not only can life be snuffed out, but your capacity to practice Dharma. So as we age, we see people around us whose minds go, right, quickly. And so for ourselves, why are we an exception? That it could happen to me, that could happen to me. I mean, physical illness could happen, death could happen. I could lose my mind just like that. And I can't access then the practices. I was talking to Chokyi. Some people might know Chokyi. She just disrobed recently, actually. Anyway, she was a very long time senior nun, Chokyi Taylor. She said, that's the name she's going by, Chokyi Taylor. And I was talking to her, and she said, there, you know, when that person's mind has gone, there will be, like, you keep, and Geshe Samten said this actually too, you keep the Dharma, you keep referring to the Dharma because it's in there somewhere. You keep that connection with somebody's connection with the Dharma. You keep that alive. And this happened to me, you know, someone we know. And I took her, you know, we have lunch, you know, I mean, many people helping her. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche had done a little video instruction to one of our Liberation Prison Project students who finally got to return to his home country of Nepal. And he gets a video instruction from Rinpoche right there and then. I kept saying to him, you realize this is not usual. This does not happen. I mean, it's happened, but it does not happen. So I was showing this person, practitioner. It was a little bit distressing because it's like, I've seen him before. Lama Zopa Rinpoche is that, you know, her guru. And it came along. And then you just keep refreshing somebody's awareness on that. And it's there to activate it, right? So we have to look after each other, because what's going to happen at the time of death? That, like when Margaret Castles, who I mentioned, when she was dying, she had, when she was in the care, in palliative care, and then the group of practitioners who were like her Dharma buddies, who, you know, the senior ones at the center, and she said, I only want you 4 or 5. And they took turns rotating, doing her a lot of practices when she couldn't do them. So it's very good. Help each other out, you know, in that way. So reflecting on death and impermanence and so forth. And through familiarity with this, going over and over and over again, emphasis on the appearances of this life is reversed. So we could say the appearance of, I'm going to live forever. Or I'm not going to die today, let alone this very moment, let alone before I get out of the gompa. I mean, we just don't entertain those thoughts, do we? I mean, we do when we're sitting in a Dharma teaching, but then we go out and, but again, you look at the news and those things happen all the time. You know, somebody died. I remember a young man in Melbourne. You know, I read it, it's a sort of news headlines. He was young. He was, I think, still a teenager on a building site working, and the building crashed, dead. I mean, you go to work, didn't even get to lunchtime. It happens, you know, like that. So of course we know that, but we've got to remind ourselves of this time could be snuffed out at any moment. And that way helps us prioritize. And therefore we turn away from just focusing on this life alone. Okay. So that's this life. So then we experience the freedom, wouldn't that be nice, of the attachment to all our worldly stuff. But I think, you know, the main one we have to focus on is the body. And so as it says, if you think again and again, so repeatedly reflecting on impermanence and death, repeatedly reflecting on the different types of suffering, taking it to, you know, relinquishment of future lives, which is what this verse is about. So here we're coming to the middle scope practice. So we're on this foundation, you know, thinking about the different types of suffering, not to go through every ache and pain, but we can look at all the illnesses, like the fact that there are more things you know, the more things guaranteed to kill us than to keep us alive, even our food, even our medicine that guaranteed to sustain us, people are allergic to, and or whatever, or it doesn't work, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so impermanence and death, but also just the fact of anywhere in samsara is in this nature of a suffering existence, even in the, you know, top levels of the formless realm where you don't have this body, but you still have the disturbing emotions, and you still like that it pervades all of existence, no matter where you are reborn. And this is where reflections not only on the sufferings of, you know, being reborn in a frog body or a hellish body or a body of craving, constant craving, which we call the hungry ghost realm or predator realm, this constant dissatisfaction, which the Buddha said we all experience everywhere. So that gets us to take refuge, because we don't want that. Thank you very much. And I've checked out the Buddha's teachings and I have conviction and faith in that. So we take refuge. But on then continuing on, actually, if I get, you know, understanding more and more, reflecting on karma, law of cause and effect, you know, it doesn't just apply to people who are Buddhist. It is a natural law, you know, that whatever we think, do, and say leaves an imprint on our mental continuum that then develops a tendency, a habit, a preference. The more we do it, it gets stronger and stronger. I mean, if anyone's given up smoking in this life, like you smoked and then you've given it up, you will know it's really hard, right? Maybe it's easier these days because they may put so many restrictions on where one can smoke. But I know, like the guys in prison, when I'm not sure if it's all prisons everywhere in Australia, I have to check. But I remember because I was visiting prisons in Victoria, and they had about 18 months warning. I think it is everywhere now. I'll have to check. But anyway, these ones in Victoria, visiting these guys in prison. And they, you know, they gave them 18 months. They gave them all these programs to quit smoking, right? But they knew the date that were, you know, no more smoking. So they'd be up there to the last minute. And then you're not prepared. It's what we do, isn't it? Oh, yeah, I know. Relinquish the body, but yeah, it feels good. Or how do I do that, you know? How we do it is by reflecting again and again of the inevitability of karma. That definitely is like no escape from the impact of that. So whatever we think, do, and say, if we thought before it comes out the mouth or before it comes out in the action, oh, this is going to have a karmic fallout for me, let alone someone else, let alone harm someone else, do no harm to ourselves, do no harm to others. Quit the critic. Quit beating myself up, because it only reinforces that negative mind state, isn't it? All the negative self-talk we're very good at. So it's like, if I can capture that before it becomes manifest, wow, you're ahead of the game. That sense of, that's liberation. I have a freedom to go down that well-known route, or I have a freedom to say, don't trust you, I'm not going there anymore, you know. And to cultivate the virtuous states of mind, because indeed that is, you know, when we talk about karma, we're usually talking about all the negative stuff, but all the positive stuff is karma too. That's why we're here, because of the ripening of the previous karma of our virtue, that of our practicing pure ethics in the context of taking vows, past lives and so forth. All of that has ripened, and here we are. And so it's just like, okay, continue on, continue on, continue on. To be able to cultivate the positive states of mind, to be able to not be sucked in to the attractions of anywhere in samsara, anywhere at all, or any experience based on these 5 aggregates, you know, which includes, oh yeah, you know, Lama, yes, you're saying, you know, at the time of death, you know, we go through all the dissolutions of the body, but what about all the belief systems we have, all the concepts, all of that dissolves as well. Everything we believe in, all our political views, all our views about the world, or anything, including all our Buddhist tenets, everything dissolves, a whole lot of it. In other words, hold everything with a lightness, with an openness, with a spacious mind, with a flexible mind that can, given good enough reason, take a different perspective, particularly the perspective of giving up this just got to look after myself. So we're still here. We're not yet on the path of bodhicitta. What time we finish? Oh, I meant to get to bodhicitta. I'll keep going. Of course, it's been coming along the whole time, because here we are. So the definition of having generated this mind of definite emergence, of determination to leave cyclic existence, weariness with cyclic existence, I'm so over it. If, having meditated again and again and again on all these topics, 4 Noble Truths, that's the middle scope, you do not generate admiration, we could say craving, grasping, which propels existence, you know, the 12 links, so number 8 and number 9. You know, you're being attracted, the attraction, and then grasping at that I want, like a little baby, you know, that isn't it, all the time. So this is how you know if you've generated that mind. You do not generate admiration for an instant, for a nanosecond, for the prosperity of cyclic existence. Or we could say the pleasures of cyclic existence, prosperity. I mean, wealth, it can be a trap. You know, there's one, I remember hearing this woman who's an Italian woman, who's very, very wealthy. She was one of the top wealthy people in Italy. And her son, when I was about 12, was kidnapped. And she never saw her son again. This was many years ago. And she spent the rest of her time on a plane, traveling, because she had the money to travel. She couldn't bear to be at home because it reminded her of her son, who she lost, you know. So this unbearable, torturous suffering, and looking for an escape route. So this is when you've given up looking for that escape route. There's no escape route, right? There's no like, I'll go somewhere else and experience something else and it'll all be good. Because it's still in the nature of suffering, in the nature of dissatisfaction, as the Buddha said, never satisfied, never content. We want happiness, but we're always chasing after the things that don't satisfy. Then we continually dissatisfied. So meditating like that, you do not for 1 nanosecond, even an instant, generate admiration, attraction, craving, grasping for existence anywhere, let alone the concerns of this life. And if an attitude seeking liberation, which is actually what's the liberation from, the freedom from, is, yes, the karma that propels us into these existences, but the big one is the mind, isn't it? It's the afflicted states of mind, all these toxic emotions, all these wrong views, all these, you know, even pleasant thoughts and so forth. So all the deluded states of mind on the basis of which we keep seeking more and more happiness on the basis of samsara. So free of that. And of course, it says, if the intention definitely to leave cycle existence has been generated, if an attitude seeking liberation arises day and night. So when you're awake, when you're asleep, not craving sleep, imagine not craving sleep. I mean, when I had to go, I might have said previously, and buy a mattress, which was supposed to be for my mother. She was much more renounced than me. She said, no. The nurse said she needed a new mattress, but she said, no, my daughter needs a new mattress. She told me to go out and buy one for me. It was torture. Like, they're all these layers thick, and then they have a topper. It's like Princess and Pea. I thought, Princess definitely wouldn't feel any peas underneath here. You know, my friends in the Philippines, when I was in the Philippines, the bed was like this, floorboards. That was the bed. And you know those candy striped bags? That was sort of like the soft covering under the sheet. So it's amazing what we can endure. We can endure. Okay. So, but if we have this, generate this mind, just like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you know, just giving away absolutely everything, no attachment to anything, nothing whatsoever. It's a good example. Okay, we'll read through at least. Moving on from there, on this mind of definite emergence. So this mind of definite emergence, or when it comes day and night, we could say it's uncontrived renunciation, it's spontaneous. It's like you live your life unattached to anything of this life. It's almost unbelievable to us, but we see that with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, His Holiness Dalai Lama. You know, His Holiness Dalai Lama got given a Rolex and then he got criticized. But also I saw one time him wearing a Mickey Mouse watch, because I guess he got given a Mickey Mouse one. It's functional, it works. It's okay. That's all that matters. Okay, so at least we'll read through a bodhicitta one. Also, if this intention definitely to leave psychic existence, so it says you've got to have this at the beginning, you've got to have that, the definite intention ourselves before really generating the altruistic intention. If it's not conjoined with the generation of a complete aspiration for higher enlightenment, it does not become the cause of marvelous bliss of unsurpassed enlightenment. Thus, the intelligent should generate the supreme altruistic aspiration to become enlightened, which is what we said at the beginning. But I've done that. Well, check again. So it says the intelligent or the wise, or, you know, when the one presentation of the three, levels of the path to enlightenment, the three scopes, remembering it's all for one individual practitioner. But when you generate that mind of the great scope, the Mahayana, great Yana vehicle, we're in a Mahayana center, which is based on that altruistic mind. And by the way, the practices on that level of practice, the practice of the bodhisattva, is where all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are rejoicing, because here we are in the definite lineage of the Buddha, which is making a commitment not just for me to be free of that, but perhaps each and every sentient being, then you've got 2 countless great eons of practice to do. No problem. So to attain we haven't, the third principle of the path, the correct view, relates to that, freedom, that liberation, that, okay, you've generated the thought of renunciation, which propels you onto the paths of, path of accumulation, the uncontrived renunciation. In presentation of 5 paths, and we can maybe talk about that next time. But it's there in the Gate, Paragate, Samgate, Bodhisattva, 5 paths, all in summary. So, so that mind, because you directly realize reality exactly as it is, coming back to that unobstructed space, that clear light mind that's right in the zone of everything as it is, not with all these elaborations that are all our afflicted states of mind, our anger, attachment, aversion, all of these lay on top, completely free of that, completely free of anything disturbing our mind. So no longer the mind of dissatisfaction, the mind of satisfaction. But if we have too much of that, it can be a trap, because then we're blissed out. And when we're blissed out, no sense of, I need to do something else, is it? I'm not sure if it's in Kundun or another film where you see these monks and they're out there and they're shaking their blankets, shaking the dirt off their blankets. So they got them over clotheslines, if it may be ringing a bell for someone, and they're just sort of they're totally blissed out, getting the dirt out of their blankets. Well, at least they're functioning, I suppose. But you have too much bliss. Saying don't have too much bliss. There's plenty of other beings who are suffering, and what are you going to do? You call yourself a Mahayana practitioner and you say, oh, I'm doing fine, over to you. No, this is this courageous mind. So we'll talk more about that next time. But we can, meantime, think, may whatever I think, do and say be of benefit to others. So everything we do, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I love the book, the Bodhisattva Attitude. Have we got the book here? Bodhisattva Attitude. Opening the door to enlightenment, and tightening the belt of discipline, and, closing the door to the lower ones. My favorite one's the toilet seat. Rinpoche says, and at Chenrezig Institute, they have the signs of, to put very old signs in the very old amenities block, the oldest building on the property, where it says, there are no lifeguards on duty, save beings from drowning. So of course you're doing that. Of course, if by put the lid down, you're doing that. Also good feng shui. Then all your wealth isn't going down the gurgler, apparently. I'm told. But also Rinpoche says, to make it a real Mahayana practice, visualize double Vajra. As you put it down, seal off the lower realms forever. But don't get too enthusiastic and break the toilet lid. And that's my, but it's really great. So I can do that practice right there on the toilet. And how many times do you go to the toilet each day and think, I don't want to see another being drown. I've made a commitment to benefit others and sort of against my vows to kill people, beings. So I've got to be more mindful. So we just be more mindful. Okay. So we better leave it there. So we can mindfully eat and mindfully drink, make the first offering to others. Take as long as you like. Our dedication prayers are page 17. Gewadi Nudu Lama Sangye Tribune Drowa Chika Malupa De Salako Pasho Janchup Senchok Rinpoche Maki Panam Gekuchi Gewa Nyampa Mebayam Gongle Gongdu Pelwa Shu. And long life prayers for His Holiness Dalai Lama and Khepje Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So that's on page 20-ish, no number. Jikten kandi pende maholuka gangle shungwe sampeli shinu kadrin songwe tensin gyatsola. So what did so to and then for Lama's Upper Rinpoche, happy birthday Rinpoche, may you live long. Page 22. Tu su shan shin jam gun yao ten si gam pao we kon so du po se chu sum ko we le mon tu drop pa da so du she go nu sha chin shu. And for long life of Tenzin Oso, Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, essence of the Buddha's teachings. O foremost and holy Lama, to you who are supreme, O Lama, please, please live long. Thank you very much. And I think tomorrow we have Medicine Buddha Puja, healing the world. So I'll be doing the prayer-a-thon early in the morning. I'm going to Zoom from here so that everyone sees the Hayagriva altar. I'm not good at